This workflow just passed. Every step green tick, but if you look at the logs, there's a curl error buried in there that nobody caught, and it means the deployment shipped a broken config. Let me show you what's going on. Here's a pretty standard workflow. On push to main, it downloads a config file from an API, runs it through JQ to extract some settings, and writes the result to a file. Nothing unusual, except in this case that API endpoint is returning a 404. Maybe the URL changed, maybe it's a typo. The point is, curl is failing. Notice the fail flag on curl. Without it, curl actually returns exit code 0 even on a 404. It only cares that the transfer completed, not what the server said. So fail is important here and is often another thing that trips people up. But even with it, this workflow still passes when it shouldn't. So curl failed, and yet, green tick, the workflow passed. The error is right there in the logs, but GitHub didn't treat it as a failure. If this were a real deployment, that broken config is probably going straight to production. So what's happening here? It comes down to how GitHub Actions invokes bash. When you write a run step without specifying a shell, GitHub runs it with bash-e. That -e flag means exit immediately if a command fails, which sounds like it should catch our error, but there's a gap. When you pipe commands together, like we're doing with curl and JQ, bash only checks the exit code of the last command in the pipeline. So curl fails, returns exit code 22, but JQ processes whatever it gets, returns 0. Bash sees the 0 from JQ and thinks everything worked. There's a flag that changes this behavior, pipefail. With pipefail enabled, bash reports the exit code of the first command in the pipeline that fails, instead of just the last one. But by default, GitHub Actions doesn't enable it. Here's the thing though, if you explicitly add shell bash to your step, GitHub invokes bash differently. You get -o pipefail, along with some other flags. Without it, you don't. It's a subtle difference that's caused a lot of confusion. There have been multiple GitHub issues filed about this over the years, and the documentation has only more recently been made clear. But there are plenty of workflows out there that were written without knowing this. The good news is the fix is straightforward. You could add shell bash to every step individually, but there's a better way. Add a defaults block at the top of your workflow. Defaults run shell bash. 3 lines. Now every step in every job gets invoked with pipefail enabled. Set it once and you don't have to think about it again. Same workflow, same broken API endpoint. But now the curl failure actually stops the pipeline. The step fails, the workflow fails. That's what we want. If something's wrong, we want to know about it before it reaches production. If you check the logs, you can see the shell invocation now includes -o pipefail, and the step stopped as soon as curl returned a non-zero exit code. One thing to be aware of, once you enable this, you might find a step that was working before suddenly fails. Grep returns exit code 1 when it finds no matches. That's not actually an error. No warnings is a good thing. But now that we've enabled pipefail, grep's non-zero exit code gets reported as the pipeline's exit code, even though wc-l succeeded. So this step, which was passing before, suddenly fails. The way around it is to handle it explicitly. An if statement lets you decide what a non-zero exit code means. The step stays in your control and your workflow still catches the failures that actually matter. It's a small change, but it makes a real difference. The whole point of CI is to catch problems early, and that only works if errors are actually visible. It's worth checking your existing workflows too. You might find they've been quietly swallowing failures you didn't know about. I'll put a link to the repo with the examples in the description if you want to try this out yourself. If you found this helpful, then please consider liking and hitting the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.